This as a collaborator.
Okay.
There
Oh,
she
hello,
is.
there she is. Hey.
Classic.
All right, got it.
Hope you enjoyed that intro.
That was pretty good. That was just about 2 minutes, which I think is actually better than the average.
I think that's pretty standard, isn't it, when you start an Instagram live?
That's what Jill was saying.
Yes, a lot of poking at the phone,
Yeah.
like a Wally. We've actually just gone to my brother's house because it's so much tidier than ours. We couldn't even find one respectable corner in our
just looking
house.
for a clear corner, not covered in gubble.
I don't have this wall in my house. This is
You've
nice.
got a nice wall.
It's very nice. Having the brick is good. It's a nice touch.
I'm gonna love you and leave you because it's kind of awkward having two people on one screen.
Yeah, or we can go back and forth like doubles ping pong.
Drop in occasionally.
Yeah.
Have a good chat. Nice to see you, Zoe. See you later.
All right. Hey. Thanks for joining. I really liked it yesterday when we sent you the email, and we're like, we were thinking of a title, something like "Observe Gaps in the Wellness and Fitness Industry," and you came back with like, "No, duh, mind the gaps," which was obvious, but we didn't think of it. Thanks for coming. I guess it makes sense if I sort of interview you today, if you're okay with that. Okay. So I assume anyone following us via WildStrong knows who we are, but it might be good to find out who you are. Okay. So I know you wear a few hats, and you kind of have your fingers in different pies, as it were. But can you just kind of introduce yourself to everybody, say who you are and what you do?
I'm an NHS GP, but I'm also the founder of wellbeing, which launched in October last year, and is primarily a bullshit-free wellbeing platform for busy people with busy brains, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
And I still work as an NHS GP, but I'm sort of doing the kind of struggle of running wellbeing at the same time, as well as being a mother to two tiny people. So so wellbeing is essentially a kind of wellbeing members platform, and I set it up mainly because I wanted to try and cut through a lot of the noise that's out there in the wellness industry, and create a space that just feels inclusive for everybody, both in the way that it's affordable and also just in the way that the concept of it is very much come as you are. We already think you're awesome. It's a self-acceptance platform rather than a self-improvement platform, is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah. You covered a lot in that intro. So just the idea of things being bullshit-free, come as you are, canceling out the noise. So that's everything I want to get into later on, because I think that'll probably be the meat of the conversation. But just going back to your role working as a GP in NHS, I was just wondering what's the genesis of wellbeing? Like what were some things that you noticed, or how did you get the idea? What's the origin story?
I think just, working every day in the NHS, I come across a whole range of people from different backgrounds, with different mental and physical difficulties with their health, and just sort of observing how, those people would benefit from some kind of A, body movement, and B, just sort of general well-being support in their day-to-day life, but how there was a complete disconnect between your average Joe, if you like, and what is kind of out there already in the wellness industry. Like I think wellbeing has come from my experience as a GP, but also my own experience of observing what's out there, and it felt very just disconnected from my own life, watching these people who live in massive mansions in LA, who happen to live by a beach, who can go out in the morning and do their sun salutation yoga and have a green and, and live this life that just, I was just thinking to myself, A, where are you finding the time? B, where are you finding the money?
Which is always a question with these sorts of things. The whole influencer lifestyle, it's always interesting to sort of figure out what is backing this. Is it this idea that people always have all this time and effort and resources and privilege to constantly be the right amount of tan and eat the right food, and like you said, hang out by a beach. It is really interesting, sort of the curated lifestyles that are behind so much of the social media space for wellness.
feels, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, it starts from a place of privilege. These people who are, you know, in the wellness industry and peddling their wellness BS in the world, they are starting from a place of financial and health privilege. And then, you know, they're saying, oh, you just do this and you just do that. And it's like, well, most people don't even have 5 minutes in their day to do it.
Or even just the structure and the space of where they live. Most people, you know, for the most part, don't have the space. You know, the thing that, you know, that always gets me is when people are like, oh, well, you know, cook your own food. Great. Well, that means you need a kitchen, you need access to fresh food. So it means you can't live in any kind of health desert. Obviously, you need the time to set aside your 90 minutes, 2 hours a day for whatever kind of wellness regimen you have. But then also just the space to do it. You know, so many people who wouldn't have access to a park or a green space or a gym or whatever. And there's just so many barriers that are about 3 or 4 steps before, you know, whatever it is that people are supposed to achieve, you know, according to the standards of the health, wellness, fitness industry.
And all that does is just serve to widen the health gap. You're not helping the people who would genuinely benefit from body movement or knowledge about their body or their health, or, you know, you're not benefiting those people. You're just helping to keep the rich, privileged, already healthy people rich, healthy. You're not actually speaking to the people who would benefit from that. And I think as well, just in the way that it's presented, like, you know, people are just watching that and just thinking, well, that doesn't apply to me, so we'll just carry on scrolling. So I think, yeah, it's time for a shift. And I think it's time in terms of inclusivity of all body abilities, all body sizes, all situations, and that needs to be included in the fitness and wellbeing industry, because, you know, the poster boys and girls of the fitness industry are just these, you know, people with ripped and it just doesn't, you know, me as a person who doesn't have that kind of body, I'm just looking at that and going, well, I don't want to go on that program, because that just seems attainable. And
it's interesting. I was going to get into this later, but we can get into it now. It's just the general weirdness of the fitness industry and the wellness industry. And, you know, I was talking to Jill about this earlier. We use the word ripped, and I think it's funny that, like, this idea of being ripped has become, you know, normalized, in that you think of this idea of hypertrophy, which was this term that, you know, was first used back in, you know, the 1830s. And, you know, hypertrophy means like overly nourished, too much. Like, the idea of hypertrophy was always used to imply that there's some sort of health problem, like, you know, hypertrophy of the heart. But now, you know, I always think of, you have all these stories, you know, these actors that get their roles in a Marvel movie, and you see this sort of transformation, you know, and these are body types that literally wouldn't have existed 100 years ago. Probably would have been impossible for, you know, a multitude of reasons to really see that body type. And now it's interesting how it's become normalized, you know, both for men and women. It is this thing that is essentially unattainable. And then all the other trappings, you know, that go along with it. You know, again, just, you know, people always wearing the clean, fancy workout gear, never being muddy, never being sweaty, or being sweaty just the right amount of sweaty, just that sort of like glistening, kind of misty, you know, and obviously never really showing the struggle. But just in general, how weird the fitness industry is, and how radicalizing social media can be in terms of what's normal and what people are expected to do in order to, you know, to be well.
I was thinking about this last night when you sent over an email, and I was thinking, yeah, like, you know, fitness has become synonymous with this, you know, this very particular visual picture of what fitness is. Then I was thinking, you know, what are the reasons for fitness? Like, why would you want fitness? What are the actual sort of day-to-day benefits of fitness? And is it, you know, are these people wanting to be fit because they want to look a certain way, or is it because, is fitness important because you need to be able to do your day-to-day tasks? And then when you're talking about that, it's like, well, you know, do you want to be lifting 100 kilos a day when you're 80? Like, is that the life that you want to have? Or do you just want to be able to, like, you know, manage to get up in the morning and not feel like everything hurts, and do some gardening and still be able to walk to the shops when you're 80?
Yeah.
You know, the definition of fitness has become blurred over the years, I think, because
even the framing of fitness sort of implies that there's somebody determining who is fit and unfit, you know, so the very framing of it sort of is automatically othering, and it means that someone is unfit for whatever, you know, purpose, you know, and then obviously like the idea of fitness is tied up. I mean, you know, it's tied up into eugenics movements of like early, you know, 20th century, and just, you know, ideas of, you know, social evolution and things like that. So like I almost, you know, it's one of the things that when we were developing WildStrong and we were trying to come up with what we want to call ourselves, over and over and over again, you see yourself like, do you put the word fit in it? And it's become this like catch-all, you know, and almost any sort of movement modality is to put the word fit in it. But it's one of these things that's just automatically exclusionary, you know, as so much of the industry is. And it's something that we struggle with too, because, you know, obviously there's a sort of preventative, almost like prophylactic benefit to exercise in terms of health span, and obviously wanting to maintain different strength and capabilities, you know, relative to what you have right now as you get older. But then there's always going to be that diminishing returns of like, you know, as you were saying, like, do you need to be an 80-year-old who can lift 100 kilos? And like, you know, personally, you know, I would like to be able to, but then at the same time, I think of all the people who are in the fitness industry who are sort of cast away or disappear after it's no longer convenient to keep them, you know. So you think of all the old bodybuilders who die in their 50s, or I'm specifically thinking of a famous bodybuilder, Ronnie Coleman, who, you know, is wheelchair bound now because he is someone who used to squat, you know, something like 800 pounds for multiple sets. And then they don't realize that there's you know, it's a deal with the devil. If you get up to that level, it's not a level that is sustainable. And I think a lot of people don't realize this, and it's true just of the body types that you see, you know, in a Marvel movie or whatever. People don't walk around looking like that all the time. That's, you know, that's a predetermined plan. You know, the photo shoot is going to be this day 2 years in advance, so you get your fluid levels and you get your training and you get your calories, everything dialed in for that one shirtless scene, you know. And then obviously if you look at them 2 days later, they start to look like a normal person again because their body fluids have normalized, you know, they're back on normal calories and everything like that. So it's, you know, it's so curated and so artificial, and it's something that's literally not sustainable. But you know, the way people look, the way people use social media, they don't realize that because they're sort of inundated with all these images that are, you know, I mean, literally impossible.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that it comes down to that, doesn't it? It's Instagram life versus real life, and you know, the comparisonitis that comes from spending too much time on social media. And I think, you know, I personally suffer from that as well. Like, I think, you know, I look at all these really successful six-figure, but, you know, everyone's got a six-figure business on Instagram, and I just absorb all of that, and I think, oh, yeah, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be here. And, you know, I think it's really hard existing in life.
This is one of the things I wanted to talk about. So existing in the fitness space and the wellness space, you know, it's all social media is weird, but I think there's something about the fitness space and the wellness space that's especially weird. There's something that's radicalizing about it. You know, there's a sense of one-upmanship that you see all the time. And I was just wondering, you know, how do you position yourself? Because it's sort of very hard to always be a moderating force, you know, within fitness and wellness, and just to try to bring people down to earth. So how is it that you try to explain what you do, and how do you sort of fight you know, that tendency to want to do like more extreme versions of things or try to overpromise in the industry?
It is hard, and I think, you know, I'll sometimes find myself being pulled in that direction, and then I'm like, that is not what this place is for. This place is primarily a safe space for all of the people who do not feel that they fit that ideal. It's for the people who think, oh, you know, I would like to be a bit fitter. I would like to maybe move my body and not have my back hurt, or I would like to be able to, you know, run around after my kids and not be really out of breath. And it's for the people who struggle with their mental health and who struggle with their physical health or have disabilities and have limitations, but they still want to feel included and accepted and not judged in the fitness space, and who maybe don't even want to do a workout, who maybe want to watch a workout and feel like they could maybe work their way up to doing a workout. Like, one of the things that I've done on Well Good Wellbeing is I've created with Hayley, who's my sort of main workout content creator. I asked her to create this series called The Mood First.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on this concept that, you know, all PTs love to say, you know, you never regret a workout, you'll feel good after a workout. Obviously, everyone knows that, but it doesn't take into account how you feel before that workout. And, you know, me personally, I've struggled with my mental health on and off for years. I'm also neurodivergent, I've got ADHD, so motivation is basically non-existent for me. So it's rare that I'm going to wake up and go, yeah, I really feel like going for a run today, and then just walk out the door without having multiple obstacles in my way, in my own head. Sit down, just like, you know, put the telly on and like have a bacon sandwich. Yeah. For me, I was like, I want to address those people specifically who massively struggle with how they feel before a workout, because that for me is one of the biggest barriers. So like, we've kind of lightheartedly named them like things like the one where you can't be arsed, or the one where you don't want to get off the floor.
Yeah, you're saying they're sort of like Friends episodes that, you know, that one, which is funny because it's one of the things that we always struggle with too, is like how do we describe different sessions or workouts to people, because you always find it's like, oh yeah, you know, that one where, you know, you try to get 2 kettlebells over your head and walk with it. It's sort of nice to just have, you know, pithy summaries of that built into it.
Exactly. And I was like, this to me, that speaks to me. And I think, you know, if there's even one called the one where you're a bit hungover, I want to put that in there because that's real life. You know, men wake up and they are a bit hungover, but they know that maybe if they did 10 minutes of HIIT, they might feel a bit better. So the people who live in the real world and have real lives, I just sort of, I just want to cut through the noise and just kind of cut through the bullshit and stop pretending that we're all living this ridiculous Instagram worthy life. Like, most of us are existing in a very busy world. A lot of us have young kids or a very busy job, and so many commitments that are barriers to kind of looking after our well-being. So I kind of wanted to create this place where you can dip in and out of it. And I came across this word the other day, with micro well-being, and it's literally about just, you know, 5-10 minutes and kind of sprinkling it throughout your day. And that's very much what Well Good Wellbeing is. It's for busy people and busy brained people, so, you know, particularly people with ADHD, because you don't really need to put aside much time to engage videos on Well Good Wellbeing.
Yeah, it's one of the things we've been struggling with a lot, or at least thinking a lot. I don't know about struggling with, but, you know, I think one of our previous conversations, we talked about that concept of movement stacking, you know, which is something I was associated with Katie Bowman, but it's the idea of how do you sort of fit more movement into your life, you know? So a classic example would be whatever, you know, if you're chopping vegetables, instead of having up on the table, bring the cutting board down to the ground so you can sort of squat down and practice getting up and off the ground. Or, you know, if you're going a walk with your kids, instead of just doing a walk, you know, try balancing on some things, or, you know, getting under a railing or something like that, just adding in different bits of movement as you do it. And I really like the idea of that. But obviously that sort of, you know, assumes that people have access to places to move. But then obviously, you know, the idea of the movement stacking is great, but we have to be honest about, you know, the society that we live in, and you have to make some sort of extra effort to get that movement in. So I think the idea of these like little small doses are really good, because a lot of what we do is we try to think of, you know, the barriers that people have as well. And I think you've done a really good job of addressing that. You know, you said come as you are. And the big thing that I think we both do is trying to get away from the idea of working out in special fitness clothes. You know, just the gear is such a barrier, and also feeling comfortable in that gear. You know, if you're someone who's more comfortable wearing, I don't know, like an old pair of joggers or some jeans or a t-shirt or something like that, you know, the idea that you have to go and get special clothes and you have to go to the special place, you know, the assumption that good or righteous people should be going to the gym, that's what good people do, is always weird with me, because it sort of assumes that the gym isn't weird, you know, and you walk into this place and it's got this weird lighting and they're probably playing music you wouldn't want to listen to, and you know, there's this weird hierarchy. You walk into a gym, you can see that although it's been my experience that people are generally really friendly, there's still this kind of like sizing up, you know. It's like, you know, if you're a guy, you're going to see who's the biggest guy in the gym, who's the guy, you know, moving the most weight. And then, I'm sure that there's all kinds of subtleties with the way that women navigate gym spaces that I'm not even aware of.
The gym in a long time, but when I did used to go, like I would get anxious about even going near the weights bit because it was just all blokes, and like while the machines worked all the time. But if I didn't feel so intimidated, I would have probably sat down and tried to work it out. And on the few occasions that I did sort of sit down and try to work it out, I did feel like they were all kind of looking at me and judging me.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Which I'm sure people weren't, but it's the fact that people feel that way. And I guess that's one of the things I wanted to talk about too, is just sort of how isolating the current model of fitness or wellness is. This kind of, we've talked about in the past, but this unit of the individual being responsible for their own health. There's always this sort of, in a lot of fitness circles, there's kind of this like built-in Nietzschean will to power, sort of narrative where you must have the energy and you must have the vitality to go exercise, and it's on you. And if you don't, there's some moral implications there. So one of the things we always think about is like, how do we get in this position where it's, even though you have the society that sort of forces you to be sedentary, that forces you on a computer, that makes all this sort of like hyper palatable food ultra convenient, every single sort of structural box that puts you in one position, and then all of a sudden we say, yeah, but now you have to overcome all that, and you have to do all these like sort of strange rituals of putting on special clothes and going to the gym and doing these weird sort of movements, where it always makes me sad that there's not kind of a space for people to sort of move together in a way that's non-competitive. The idea that all the onus is on the individual just really doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's such a toxic narrative. And also, I think one of the most toxic things is how congratulatory we are of people who have achieved their weight loss journey, and somehow prior to that they were somehow unworthy of being liked by society, and people can't help themselves. It tumbles out of their mouth without thinking, oh, you look great. To me, that just says, well, you thought I looked shit before. Just don't say anything. It's none of your fucking business.
Yeah. I get that. I get that all the time. Like I'll be leading a class sometimes, and people are like, "Oh, Andrew, you've lost weight." It's like, man, I didn't realize I was in a situation where like I wasn't fulfilling my duty as a trainer or as a coach. By whatever, having a few too many beers. It is funny. It's funny what people feel comfortable commenting on, and also I think what people think of as a compliment, because like you said, there's sort of like that negative space where like if you're not fulfilling that, then like somehow that's not as good. But it's also interesting as well, like how I think there does need to be some sort of language to talk about that. It is generally nice to feel good, and it is nice to feel capable, within wherever your abilities are. And, I think it is nice to sort of feel like, well, a few months ago, it would have been very hard for me to go on a walk or go up some stairs. And the fact that I'm moving that direction is positive. But is there a way to do that without shaming people? Or how do we sort of talk about that? Or is it just nobody's business and we should just focus on ourselves?
I think in a way it's nobody's business. And I think what the way we tackle it is, people will have those feelings. People will have a feeling of wanting to, wake up and not have back pain or not feel. So they have those kind of things that they want to do, and they'd be looking for ways to solve that problem, I guess. And I think it's about creating those spaces where they feel not judged. And so that's Good Wellbeing and WildStrong is about. It's about creating places where we go, come as you are and do what you can, and that no one here is going to say that you are doing badly, or no one's even really going to comment on it. You just come, you do this. It's not even really about the thing. It's about connecting with other people, or just putting aside some time to kind of look after yourself, and that in itself is a really positive thing. Even if you finish the workout, like it's just judgment-free zone, and it's whatever you feel you want to do, and no one cares. Like
So someone said the other day, we had one of our community workouts, and I saw some of our regular members talking to some non-members who came, And it was nice, there were kids and people were moving around, and, we had coffee and pastries and everything afterwards. And I heard one of the clients saying, it's like, what's funny is uh, nobody ever talks about how much weight they've lost, and nobody, people sort of poke fun at me, because sometimes I'm more, I'm more visible, and they'll kind of be like, okay, Andrew, it looks like you've lost a little bit of weight from the summer, but you never hear that conversation um, between clients about weight loss. You always hear them talk about what they've been able to do or activities they've started and things like that. And it is really nice to have a space where this idea of weight loss is not really mentioned. And it's one of those things that until someone points it out, sometimes you forget that it's language that's not really used.
Yeah. My heart's like, I mean, it's diet culture and this sort of pursuit of the perfect weight and the perfect body. It's just so pervasive. It's everywhere. It often feels like shouting into a void, like setting up things like Well Good Wellbeing and WildStrong, because the fitness industry is still driven so much by that, and they hook people in by offering quick fixes. But I'm not going to give up, and I know you guys aren't, because I think that there is a place for us, and we are for the people who need that most. I think it's about creating that. It's about leveling the playing field. That's pure and simple. It's about just saying, come as you are, and we're just so happy you're here. And even if you just want to sit down and watch us run around like loons for a bit, that's cool. Like, you are still welcome. And that those places are just so few and far between, I think, in the and it's just
I think that's probably a good place for us to pick up next time when we talk about that. We've got just about a minute left, and I realized we didn't really talk about how people can get in touch with you and how people can start working with you. So I don't know if you want to take a little bit of time just to explain the process, what people might see, if they use you.
So essentially, I mean, Well Good Wellbeing is a social enterprise, and as I said, I set it up for lots of different reasons. You can join at various sort of different membership prices depending on what your kind of situation is. So, like, if you're an individual who is financially stable and you're happy paying £20 a month for an all-encompassing wellbeing membership, then we have individual memberships that you can just simply go to wellgoodwellbeing.com and purchase. If you're an NHS or key worker, then you automatically are entitled to the £5 a month subsidised membership, and that is subsidised by money that I receive from individual and business memberships. And that side of things is so important to me, because as an NHS worker myself, there really isn't any Well Good Wellbeing out there for NHS and key workers. So you can join, and also if you're part of a hospital trust or an NHS trust or a GP practice, then your practice can also sign up as a business client. If you are financially struggling for whatever reason, we also have a pay it forward scheme. So you can assess it. It's like, those coffee shops where you can buy a suspended cup of coffee. You can buy a suspended membership, someone who's financially stable, and you want to gift someone a random act of kindness of a membership, then you can buy that, and then someone who's on the free membership wait list will be able to have that for 6 months or 12 months. And I feel like in setting it up that way, it truly is accessible, because no matter your situation, you will be able to access Well Good Wellbeing. It's also an employee membership program, so businesses can sign up for their employees to access all of the stuff that we have on the platform. And as I said, NHS trusts and GP trusts also can do that. So yeah, it's essentially an online membership with it covers body, mind, soul, soil, society, savvy, which is about sort of connecting with nature, connecting with others, giving back to society. And it's awesome. It's colorful. It's fun. It's filled with.
It is really fun. That's one of the things, like, having navigated the site, your voice is really fun, and personality comes through, and it just feels, working through it, or I shouldn't say working through it, kind of exploring it is really fun, because so much of, your sense of humor and everything comes through, and it's just it's a nice product to use, and it doesn't feel stuffy. It's not like, work for NHS, what it's like logging into some of the admin systems and going like 3 systems deep in order to do an evaluation or something like that. It is like something that is just genuinely really, really nice to use.
it's meant to feel pleasurable, you know, because I
Yeah.
think barriers to looking after your health and well-being can be that it feels like a chore, and I really wanted to create a place where it didn't feel like a chore. It was something that you looked forward to engage in. And, you know, we've got daft things in there like funny animal videos,
Yeah.
recipes. There's, you know, it's very much just built around humans and normal lives, but there's also things in there that, you know, educate you and empower you, and yeah, it's all about that.
Yeah, no, it really comes through. We're about at our 30 minutes. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't know if it's worth opening up to anybody if they want to ask any questions. I don't even know how it works on this. Do they type it in?
I don't actually know how many people are watching, but
Oh, loads, like probably millions. I don't know. There's a number that says 3 in the upper right, but I imagine that's probably stands for about 3 million would be my guess.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think that's it. This is fun. I think this was a good first chat, and it'd be nice to follow up and kind of talk about some more specific things.
And I think, yeah, we'll switch around the next time when I can interview you guys about all the amazing stuff that.
Yeah, I should get you and Jill talking. That would be good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to the upcoming lives that we're going to do together.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'm gonna start tapping the screen like a Neanderthal, trying to figure out how to turn this off. So I'll just be here for a few more minutes. All right. See ya.